and years, it was an area that I completely ignored, honestly. It was, you know, I kind of grew up in the school of thought. One of my first mentors got a lot of great things through the years from him, but there's also some things that I probably shouldn't have taken this particular gentleman's advice on. And that was, or I'll never forget the statement that he made in several occasions. There's two types of people in this world, people you know and people you don't know. Which group is bigger? Well, the group of people that you don't know is obviously bigger than the group of people that you do know. That you do know. Now, there's obviously some silver lining in that, because you have to go out and talk to people you don't know in order to create current clients and a database, right? So there's definitely some good advice there. The challenge is, for me, I took that a little too far and did not focus any energy or effort on the people that I did know and was doing business with, and only focused on new clients. So for years and years, even when we were at a level of doing 300, 400, 500, 600 transactions, not really putting a lot of effort into our database. In fact, it was really only, you know, we did a mass mailing for one of our recent events, and I asked the staff how many invitations did we send out to our client appreciation party, and the number was somewhere around 4,000, 3,500, 3,800, something like that. And of course I started doing some math in my head, and I'm thinking, well, gosh, we've done, you know, a lot more sales than that. Why are we only sending out 3,500, you know, 4,000? Well, that's because no one made an effort, including myself, to actually keep track of a lot of these people up until about 6 or 7 years ago. So even though I've been doing this in 2003, it's embarrassing to say this, I don't have a record of any of my transactions from 2003 to probably 2013 or 14. So when you know, I go to the staff and say, okay, get an invite out to the database, and they're like, okay, how many did you send out? 4,000. Well, that's because we weren't doing a good job of keeping track of their information. And so I learned that lesson the hard way. So I want to share with you a couple lessons, of course, as we go through this. What also I find interesting is that our customer experience was never really a big focus of mine. It was always sell their home quickly, and that's good service, or help them find a home quickly, and that's good service, and they'll come back to you or they'll refer you. And I took that literally. I never really, you know, maybe did some holiday cards, and that was it. I never really put an effort towards the database. So it wasn't until about 5 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago, we hired a consultant to come in and look at our business, you know, which is known as JGA, Jeff Glover Associates, to look at the business and say, okay, where are some holes? Why are we, you know, we got to probably 500 transactions, 600 transactions, and we weren't getting to the next level. We were kind of getting stuck at that level. And what we discovered is that there was no real strong customer experience. That was no different than anybody else. And so I'll never forget, we sat in a conference room in our office in Birmingham, and we wrote a bunch of stuff up on the whiteboard. And one of the questions that came out of that meeting was, what can we do? What can we change? What can we add? What can we implement so that a customer never has to reach out to us first? And so now, every single year, when we put our business plan together for the coming year, we write that same question up. Okay, what can we do? What can we add? What can we change? What can we implement so that a customer never has to reach out to us first? And think about all the ways and all the times that clients expect to hear from you. Especially, you know, for someone like myself who built a business on working expired listings, that was the #1 complaint I always heard, and I still hear to this day. We always had to reach out to them who wanted anything. We always had to call them. We always had to email them. And so what came out of this session, again, we had a consultant come in and look at the business and spend days and hours with us. It was, there really isn't any focus on the customer experience. And so how we shifted our mentality, we did it a few ways, which I'll share with you, but one of the big ways was writing up this question every single year. What can we do? What can we change? What can we add? What can we implement so that a customer never has to call us first? Now, during that process, by the way, we identified some 67 pain points. 67 points from the first contact with the client to post-closing, where a client is expecting to hear from us. A client is expecting to get some sort of response from us. We've identified 67, 68 different areas. And so now we don't try to solve them all because, by the way, we haven't solved that problem. What we do is each year we look at, okay, what are 5 things that we can implement? What are 6 things we can implement? What are some things that we can do to make it, for instance, you guys know how this goes, right? You have an appraisal on your listing. You call the clients, you say, hey, the appraisal is going to take place today between 4 and 5 o'clock. You know, just be there to let the appraiser in, or maybe, you know, the appraiser has a lockbox code, whatever. 5:01, client calls you. Hey, what's going on, Chef? Yeah, the appraiser just left. Do you have the results back yet? Right? I mean, how many times has that happened, right? Same thing with feedback. They want feedback like instantly. So we implemented something to where automatically it reaches out to the clients in advance of their appraisal and lets them know it's going to take a certain amount of time before we hear back. So it stops them from making that call to us. That's just one simple example. We haven't solved the problem. There's still 67 pain points. We've probably eliminated 24 over the last 5 years, and we still have another 30, 40 to go, I'm sure. But the reality is that our focus had to shift from finding new business, finding new business, finding new business to what can we do to retain the clients that we have and bring in more business from the clients we have. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Essentially, everything that we've implemented over the last 4 or 5 years. Now, of course, I wouldn't be doing my job if I also didn't mention, because I know it's getting towards the busy time of year, to make sure that you have blocked off your schedules for our annual summer event. It's up in Traverse City, Michigan, the Live Unreal Retreat. Listing mastery. So we're doing everything from start to finish, sharing everything that you need to know about mastering and dominating the listing inventory in your market. What's nice about the conversation today is this is now a pillar for us of where we get a significant amount of listings. Where 5 years ago, I would think you'd be crazy if I said, yeah, sphere of influence, we don't get a ton of listings from our sphere of influence or our past clients. Today, it's one of our biggest sources. In fact, when I look at our sales boards now, sphere of influence past clients and referrals from them is almost 40% of our overall business. 5 years ago, it was less than 10%. 10% to 35 to 40%. And what I mean by that is 50 to 100 transactions a year to now 350 transactions a year come from past client sphere of influence referrals because of what we implemented over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I'm going to share with you everything that we've been doing the last 4 or 5 years to get that ratio up. All right. So I wrote down where to start. All right. Obviously, I mentioned to you we had a consultant come out. I'm not encouraging that you have to do that. The good news is I learned the hard way, so you're learning from my poor experience, right? You're learning from my lack of ability to be great with my database. All right, I wasn't instructed to add value to the database until I learned that adding value to the database does give you a great ROI, which is obviously why we're here. So let's start with the first step. I wrote down step number 1. We add value to the database by improving the customer experience, which we just talked about a little bit, and I'll share with you some more on that. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write down the first step to add value to the database, which leads to more referrals, is improving the customer experience. And I wrote down an experience, this is key, an experience where they can actually feel the difference. An experience where they can actually feel the difference. They actually mention it. They tell their friends about it. They might send you something and say, wow, this was unlike any other experience I've had. They actually feel the difference. You know, it's interesting, when we started working on the concept of Titleosity, we sat, we did a focus group and we sat in a room and talked about, okay, every title company says they're quick. Every title company says they give good service. Every title company says that they get you to the closing table faster, or they get you paid faster, or whatever. What are we going to do that's actually different, so that way we're not standing up in a sales meeting in front of a bunch of agents sounding like every other title company? And that's how Unreal Service was born. Difference that the agents can actually feel. A difference at the table, a difference in the phone call, a difference in the experience. It has to be the same way with your clients. Goes back to the whole the whole idea of what can we add, change, implement, improve so that our customers never have to call us. a difference they can actually feel. I wrote down next, under adding value, in improving the customer service, by improving the customer experience. What is your actual mission statement, A, and B, does it relate to the customer's experience? What is your actual mission statement, and A, and B, does it relate to the customer experience? Or did you do like what a lot of agents do and just copy and paste it from some corporate website or from some other team or some other top agent in another part of the country? Because that's what most of them are. We believe in providing the best service in the least amount of time possible, and that's why you should hire us. That's not a mission statement. That's like a cliche, right? That's what everyone says. So what is your actual mission? And again, whether you have one or not, I would consider going back and revising it. And it's not going to happen. You're not just going to go home tonight and say, okay, what is my mission and how can we change this? I can tell you for us, again, this came out of our conversation with the consultant we came in. Hey, you guys have no clear mission. In fact, the conversation, I remember it, was distinctively, your mission is just to get up to number one. And I'll never forget the conversation around, how do you plan on getting to number one when your mission has nothing to do with your clients? Think about that. Our mission was number one home selling team in Michigan, right? That was like our focus. And the mistake we made in realizing is that, and this consultant essentially had this conversation with us, how do you plan on getting to that level if your mission isn't even about your clients? Talk about a huge aha for us. And that's when it shifted from, okay, we're throwing out the focus on becoming number one. Let's focus on these things because it'll help us get there. So for us, living an unreal experience to deliver one was born. And that was born out of essentially getting our agents together and talking about what we can do with the customer experience, and Live Unreal essentially came from that. Living an unreal experience to deliver one. Now, I'm not saying I would encourage you to just copy that and make that yours, but I do think it's valuable in understanding how we came up with that and what that actually means. So that way it gives you some ideas on how you could create one. Living an unreal experience to deliver one. First of all, the term unreal. Unreal means something, to me, unreal means something so amazing it's almost unbelievable, right? Unreal, something so amazing it's almost unbelievable. So if our belief that came out of those discussions were, if our associates are living an unreal experience at work, at home, living an unreal experience on this earth, they're going to be happier, they're going to be more excited to show up, they're going to be better with communication, and guess what ends up happening? The second part of the mission, which is to deliver one. If you're living an unreal experience, you're more likely able to deliver an unreal experience. And so delivering one, meaning the experience that the customer feels. Because you could read every book under the sun and it will tell you that the way you feel determines your attitude and what comes out of your mouth and ultimately your outcomes. So our big focus was, how can we make it to where our associates are all living unreal experiences in their lives, so that way our customers are are able to pick up on that and essentially have the same experience. Hence why Live Unreal was born. So I wrote down, how do you measure it? So add value by improving the customer experience. How do you measure the improvement of the customer experience? Well, you could always do an after closing survey. Now, for those of you that are solo agents or not comfortable making this call to your clients, there's companies out there. There's online. You can just Google, online customer surveys, and there's services out there that for a small fee. I mean, we're probably talking like $10 a month or $20 a month. They'll send emails and stuff to your clients and ask them to rate you and survey you. All right. If you're part of a team or you have an assistant, this is a call that your staff would make. And they'd say, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate Jeff in this area, in this area, in this area? Can't be. It's better if it's not you, okay? Because if you say, hey, would you mind giving me some feedback on the experience? They're not going to tell you the truth. It's amazing how much they'll tell someone else, but they won't always tell you. So it's either got to be a third-party service, a staff person, somebody else other than you. Now, of course, you can always ask them. I wrote down the next thing. How do you measure it? So, and by the way, in our company, we call it a customer service score. So every single one of our agents has a customer, we have a board, and it's live, so it gets updated as clients give the reviews. And on a scale, they're all rated on a scale from 1 to 10. So it's a neutral person that calls, so it's totally unbiased. And they're all rated based on their customer service score that the customer gave on a scale from 1 to 10. How would you rate your experience with Jeff? I'd give it an 8. Okay, Jeff's an 8. Right? So we're monitoring the actual customer service score. Think of the logic just in that. When I'm talking about first step is adding value by improving the customer experience, we're not only are we measuring it, but we're making it part of our culture. We're making it part of the overall feeling, if you will, with what we do. Again, if you measure it, you're likely to see improvement in it. Next, I wrote down, of course, Zillow and Google reviews. All right, those are the two areas where you would, of course, want to ask your clients to review you. The more reviews you're getting, all right, the better referrals you're going to get. The more notice your business is going to get. And of course, if you're giving good service, you're going to see your reviews increase. Don't get mad when you get a bad one. As long as 9 out of 10 are good, it's okay. You're not going to please everybody. All right, as long as you can stay above the 90 percentile range, right? So 90% are positive, 10% negative. That's totally fine. You're not going to make everyone happy. And Zillow and Google, by the way, are the two biggest areas that we focus on. All right. Yelp is kind of losing in popularity because I think the public are starting to figure out that it's, hate to say it, a little crooked, right? Because you can pay to have reviews removed and all this stuff. So I wouldn't put a lot of focus or effort on Yelp, but Zillow and Google are definitely two areas where the consumers are most trusting in those types of reviews. I wrote down, okay, how can you get more reviews? Well, one of the things we're going to be talking about at our retreat that has helped us get a lot more listings from our database is this idea of what we call a 5-star program. So I'll give you kind of the gist of it now, but we're literally spending 20, 30 minutes at our retreat in sharing with the audience how you can implement this, which will lead to more listing referrals. So here's the 5-star program. In essence, okay, we ask our customer to write 1 review on 5 different platforms. 1 review, 5 different platforms. And of course we give them instructions, you know, you can just copy and paste it, but we send them the links. Here's Google, here's Zillow, here's Trulia, here's Realtor.com, here's HomeLight. You know, I think we send them, do we still send them to Yelp?
No.
We don't even send them to Yelp anymore. That shows you how lack of credibility Yelp is today. So we're sending them to 5, so we call it our 5-star program because we're asking them to give us 5 reviews. And in exchange for that, once they've completed it, because of course you get notified when someone reviews you, in exchange for that, we send them a $75 gift card to dinner at a restaurant of their choice, just for writing these reviews. Well, why do you do that? That could get kind of expensive. Yeah, but if you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 75, 100, or 900 reviews, then you're more likely either A, people to click on you or reach out to you because they see the experience, or B, guess what happens when people are reviewing you? At that moment, they're thinking about how good their experience was, and if they come across somebody that's looking to buy or sell, they're more likely to say, hey, yeah, you got to give my agent a call. They did great. You're fresh in their mind a couple weeks after closing, after the closing's been done and gone, right? So our 5-star program, ask them to write 1 review, 5 different platforms. Send them to dinner. You're not breaking any rules by sending them a dinner for writing reviews, as long as you're not sending them a gift card in exchange for a referral. That's different. You can't do that. Again, we'll talk more about that at the retreat. Next, I wrote down step 2. So step 1, add value by improving the customer experience. Step 2 is following up and adding value during the listing or buyer agreement. And I'll explain what I mean. Adding value during the listing or buyer agreement. And most of you guys already do this, but there may be a few here that you could add. During the listing buyer agreement, and what I mean by that is when you have an active listing and or a buyer that you're regularly showing homes to. All right, so let's just say it's a buyer that you're regularly showing homes to. Whether you're in the process of showing homes to them or not, because a lot of our agents, of course, use showing agents. A weekly follow-up call to check in and see how things are going is a customer experience, okay? Best tip I can give you on working with buyers to improve the customer experience, actually call them from time to time. You don't have to do this every day, but from time to time, actually call them with an address of a property that just came on the market that you think fits what they're looking for. 9 out of 10 realtors set them up on a search and forget about them. Right? This is usually the policy. And by the way, I'm guilty of it too until I learned how to provide a better customer experience. 9 out of 10, yep, what are you looking for? Let's set you up on a search, and then let me know if any fit your criteria. Maybe every now and then you check in. Hey, have you seen anything you're looking for? Have you seen anything that, I know inventory's low, but they're coming, don't worry, right? You do some check-ins. The best experience you can give a buyer, because it's different, it's something that they haven't experienced with most agents before, is calling them with an actual address. Hey, I don't know if you saw it yet, but this home on Banana Street just came on the market. Would you like to take a look at it? Why is that? Nobody else is doing it. Everyone else is just setting them up on a search and waiting on the client to say, hey, found a home, right? So, of course, while you're thinking, gosh, I got enough calls to make, now you need to make a few more, well, you're going to have to time block for it, and yeah, it's going to have to be part of your routine. All right, I wrote down, if you have an active listing, weekly check-ins, and every other week, market updates. A weekly check-in, ideally good to do on a Friday, okay, because we can, of course, get into a price reduction conversation. They're more likely to give you a price reduction on Friday than any other day of the week. Friday, weekly check-in with an active listing. And every other week, what I call a market update. Since we listed the home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's been 14 days now, and I just want to update you on what's taking place with the listing in the market. The focus on that call is 100% what's going on in the market. Okay, you have your computer in front of you, you have the active, you have the sold, you tell them what's been listed, what's been sold, and you give them an update on what's going on in the market. That's every other Friday, and the Fridays in between is just a check-in. Hey, I know it's been a little slow this week, anything I can get for you right now? Simple as that. Or hey, we had 3 showings, sorry I only got 1 feedback for you this week. You know I track these guys down and try to get them to respond. We're looking forward to having a busy weekend, right? Just a weekly check-in. So adding value during the listing and buyer agreement through follow-up. Weekly check-in, every 2-week market updates. Of course, following up on your marketing plan, showing them what's been done. All right, I'll tell you, I know I didn't do a great job of this in the past. Our staff does a really good job of it now. Sending communication out to our clients. You know, Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulio, whatever, they always send you updates. Oh, your home's been, your listing's been clicked on 87 times. It takes 3 seconds to forward that to your client. And it's just another touch. It's just another way to stay in contact. The goal is, whether you sell their home or not, is for them to say, you know what, hey, they either got it sold and the experience was awesome, or they didn't get it sold, but you know what, I have nothing bad to say about them because they kept in contact, whatever. Where I can tell you 5 years ago, okay, the business was, if it didn't sell, they probably hated me. All right, because not only did it not sell, but we didn't really give a great experience. Now today, if it sells and we give a great experience, we create a raving fan club, essentially. So think about what your follow-up system is during the listing and the buyer agreement, meaning when you're actively working with the buyer, showing them homes, but you don't have a purchase agreement yet, or when you have an active listing that hasn't sold. Step 3, and some of these will end up being out of order, and you'll see why. Step 3 is, what is your follow-up after the sale? What is your follow-up after the sale? Hopefully by now, you're aware of the honeymoon phase. Okay, this is absolutely the highest and best time to get referrals from your clients, the honeymoon phase. Well, what's the honeymoon phase? The honeymoon phase is 7 days after you sign a listing agreement, 7 days after they sign a purchase agreement on their home, I'll repeat these, and 7 days after closing. 7 days after you take the listing, 7 days after they've accepted an offer on their home. There's a buyer version too, I'll share that in a second. And 7 days after closing. Well, why do you call that the honeymoon phase? Well, because that is the part of time in your relationship with your client where you're most likely to get a referral from them. Think about it. 7 days after you've taken a listing, you haven't had a chance to screw it up yet. They're not mad at you for no showings yet. They're not upset that agents are leaving their doors unlocked. They're not mad that they haven't gotten feedback, right? First 7 days of taking their listing, their confidence in you is at an all-time high. That's the best opportunity to ask for referrals. Well, how do you do that? Well, I can tell you I actually did implement this one personally years ago, and now our staff does it. And that is, hey, congratulations, your home is live and on the market. We're so excited to start getting some activity and see things take place. And of course, we're always looking to pair up our listings with our buyers and our buyers with our listings. So while we have you on the phone, who else do you know that's looking to take advantage of this great market? Oh, you guys have been awesome. The photos look great. So far, everything's great. Yeah, you know what? My uncle's going to be selling soon or whatever. You have a best chance of getting referrals from your current clients within 7 days of accepting, of taking a listing, 7 days of accepting an offer, 7 days after close. On the buy side, it's 7 days after the buyer consultation, because the same thing there. After you've been working with them 2, 3, 4 weeks, you haven't found the home they want, whether it's your fault or not. In most cases, we know it's not. It's the inventory. Their confidence in you starts to wane. Their confidence in you is at the highest point within 7 days of the buyer consultation. Well, what script do you use? The same exact script I use after I take a listing. Hey, I'm so glad we had the opportunity to meet this Tuesday. Hopefully by now you've started to receive some listings in your emails. Oh yeah, we got your email last night. We got a couple in there we're going to check out. Great. I appreciate the opportunity you're giving me to go to work for you. And if you don't mind me asking, because we're always looking to pair sellers with our buyers and buyers with our sellers, who do you know that's looking to take advantage of the market right now? Who do you know that's either looking to put their home on the market or looking to purchase a home? Well, I can't think of anyone right now. Appreciate you taking the time to think about it. Hopefully you'll keep us in mind and you just move on. Again, their confidence in you is at the highest point. You're most likely to get a referral at that moment. These are things that I never did, right? We implemented all this stuff in 5 years. And in 5 years went from 10% of the business being SOI past clients to 40% of the business being SOI and past clients. So think about the honeymoon phase and how you can implement that into your business. Following up after the sale, again, the customer service call, which we talked about. The honeymoon phase. I wrote down, let's see, closing gift. All right, what are you doing after the closing? Are you sending them a closing gift? We send out coasters with, you know, a watercolor kind of little portrait of their home on it with our company logo on it and the agent's name on the back with a little handwritten card from the agent. We use continuedclosings.com. It's actually a company that I have some interest in, so of course I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. That has worked great for us. Again, 5 years ago we weren't sending out any closing gifts. In fact, I actually thought that the gift I gave them was selling their home. Right? Well, that's actually not a good way to think if you want repeat and referral business. So we send out a closing gift that's customized to them. Obviously, adding to the mail list, I wrote down email and snail mail. Sounds basic, but make sure you're getting both. All right. Another thing we've implemented as a team over the last couple of years, sending out birthday cards, giving the agents a list of all their clients and their clients' birthdays. Hey, it's, you know, whatever month it is, here's all your clients that are having birthdays this month. Here's the birthday card that went out to them. Happy anniversary card. That's an easy one. You know when it closed. Well, I don't really want to ask for their birthday. I feel like it's being a little too personal. Well, you don't have to get their date of birth. I mean, you don't need the year they were born, right?
That's the title company too.
Yeah, the title company does that too because it's on their licenses, right? So there you go. Happy anniversary card on the sale and purchase of their closing. Something that, again, makes it a little more personal, shows them that you're paying attention to them. Who else is sending them happy anniversary on their home sale cards? No one. So you're not going to get lost in the shuffle of all the other birthday cards, right? Which we'll talk about the holiday cards in a minute. All right, so step 1, adding value by improving the customer experience. Step 2, adding value through the active agreement. Step 3, following up after the sale. Step 4 is adding value during the life of the client. So this would be like after the transaction's well behind us. Adding value during the life of the client. We'll talk about that. So there's probably a million formulas out there on, you know, you've heard of them, 36 touch and 87 drip and, you know, 22 this and fancy names and all this stuff. We follow a very simple formula we have so now this is our 4th year, maybe 5th year following this exact formula. It's amazing how we've implemented not only this through the years, but how we've seen the difference in the business from our sphere of influence and past clients. Not just like increase, but literally become one of our biggest sources of business. I mean, I think if I look at our transactions closed from 2018, sphere of influence, past clients, and sphere of influence, past clients referrals was our #1 source at close to 40%. It was like 38 or 39%. So how do we add value during the life of the client? I'll share that with you now. We follow what's called the 4-2-1 formula. So if you're following along, taking notes, just write down number 4, drop down a couple lines, write down the number 2, drop down a little bit, write the number 1. And when I read these to you, you're going to say, that's it? Like, don't you have any like secret pills or magic wands? This is it. Ready? Here we go. It's 4 pieces of mail, which I'll explain in detail, by the way, what these are. 4 pieces of mail, 2 phone calls, and 1 client event with an asterisk. So just put an asterisk next to the client event. 4 pieces of mail, 2 phone calls, and 1 client event. Now, we have them set up on drip campaigns too, but I almost don't even count those. But we will talk about that in a second. All right, so let's talk about the 4 pieces of mail real quick. Really? Well, first of all, once you get over the shock of that's it, that's the formula, yeah, that's it. It's that simple. I don't like to complicate things. If you guys didn't know this, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we didn't even have a CRM. All right, we were literally like an Excel spreadsheet. So when I said we finally got a database 6 years ago, it was Excel. All right, and then we were operating off of Excel up until about 18 months ago. So at that time, by the way, we were doing 900 transactions. We added a CRM 18 months later. Guess how many transactions we're doing? 900 transactions, right? So it's not like the CRM is some magic thing that's going to come in and save the business or double the business. But I'll tell you, in the last 4 years since we've implemented this, we've seen a major shift in our business from sphere of influence and past clients. All right, so 4 pieces of mail, very simple. And I'm not. If you want to copy this, great. Or if you want to come up with your own formula, 5-3-2. I don't care what it is, but here's ours. All right. In January, we send out a year in review letter. Essentially, this is what took place in the market last year. Now, I know some people get personal with it. Depending on how well your clients know you, that's totally up to you. I know some agents saying, my daughter went off to college and my son had a baby. If you want to do that, that's fine. I've seen that effective. I think it really depends on how personal you get with your clients. I probably lack that a character, if you will, or that characteristic in getting very close and personal with my clients. So I don't make that letter personal at all. It's 100% business related. What happened to interest rates, what happened to inventory levels, what happened to sales prices, what happened to home sales, what happened to each county. I get real simple, and by the way, it's a simple 1-page letter, so I never go on to page 2. It's literally just 1 page, okay? And of course, in the year in review letter, they're getting 1 page and a business card. Very simple. That takes place in January. In March, we do an invite to our client party. So they're getting another letter all about our client party with a little invitation to our client party, which I'll explain in a minute. So an invite to our client party in March. Why did I pick March? Well, because here in Michigan, we're in a seasonal market. When do most people start thinking about buying or selling? March. When do they actually do it? April, May, June. When do they first start thinking about it? When the weather breaks in March. So invite to a client party goes out in March. We also send out in July a so far this year letter. So far this year. By the way, what I'm sharing with you today is everything that we've essentially implemented over the last 4 years. And like I said, I did some things before. I mean, I provided okay service. I sent out holiday cards. I did some of the basics. But everything I'm sharing with you today is what we've implemented in the last 4 years and what has caused our sphere of influence and past client business to become our #1 source today. Because up until 4 years ago, all I could talk about was how to get business from expires and FSBOs, because that's all I knew. So that goes out in July. So far this year. Well, what do you mean so far this year? Well, what's going on in the market? Again, I go back to interest rates, inventory levels, sales, prices, all things related to real estate. Again, if you have a different, deeper relationship with your clients where you get personal with them or they're personal with you, fine. If you want to put what's going on in your family life, I have no problem with that. I see a lot of agents do that, and I think that's fine. And then finally, the 4th piece of mail is a holiday card with a fridge magnet calendar. Yes, those things have been around for, probably 50 years. Now here's the trick with that, because most agents send those out. You want to be the first one that they receive, because they don't care whose mug is on it. okay? So I almost tell our agents, like, what are you doing? It's December 15th, you're just now sending out holiday cards? Okay, it's almost a waste of money to send out holiday cards on December 15th. Well, why is that? Well, because that little fridge magnet that you spent 37 cents on, plus the postage, plus this and that, they already got one on their fridge for 2019. It's going in the trash. Well, yeah, but I have a good relationship with them. It doesn't matter. They don't care whose face is on it. If they're getting a fridge magnet in around Thanksgiving for the next year, guess what? Oh, look at, we got the new calendar in the mail. Let's get it up on the fridge. It's for next year. So that way, when they open magnet number 2 and magnet number 3 and magnet number 4, you really think they're going to go take down the other one and toss it in the trash to put up yours? No chance. The first one they receive is the one that's going up there. They're not going to say, well, you know, Bob's been sending us these for years, but we haven't gotten his yet, so I know that Sally must be new to the business, so let's just throw hers in the trash. I'm sure Bob will send us one. We got to put Bob up there because we've had Bob up there for 10 years now. No, they're putting up the first one they get. All right, and how do I know this? Because I go to some of my best clients and some of my friends and their parents, and I go into their kitchen and I see they have other realtors' magnets up there. Why is that? They like me more. I'm their son's best friend. Well, because that agent got it in their hands first. So no more sending out holiday cards after December 5th, December 10th. Get them out around Thanksgiving or December 1st at the latest. All right? Because you're not going on the fridge if you're doing a holiday magnet. And by the way, holiday magnets, as simple as they are, people kind of like start to rely and count on those things as being a fixture on the side of their fridge. Now I know today with stainless steel, they don't stick on the front, so but still the side is not usually stainless steel. They're still putting them on the side. All right, so there's your 4 pieces of mail. 2 calls. This might surprise you, knowing what you know about the way that I've done business up until the last 4 or 5 years. 2 calls throughout the year. Neither one of them do we ask for business. We are not asking for business on these calls. All right, there's a script out there, and I'm not poo-pooing the script or discouraging anyone from using the script. The whole lot, this is a business call. Do you have a minute for me? Who do you know? All right, that's a good script. I'm just telling you in the last 4 years, since we've changed our model around the customer experience, we went away from that. And so, well, okay, Jeff, if you're not asking them for business, what are you doing on those 2 calls? I'll share with you. In March, we're calling the entire database, and we're inviting them to our client event, which takes place in April. So we're calling them up to 2 to 4 weeks in advance of our client event and inviting them to that. So that's 1 call. Simple invitation call. Again, not asking for business. Our second call is around Thanksgiving, a couple weeks prior to Thanksgiving, a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. One of the favorite calls of mine for years. This is actually one that I did implement probably 10 years ago, and it stuck with us, right? So there's a couple of these things, I guess, that we have been doing for a while, but for the most part, 90% of this has all been implemented in the last 4 or 5 years. Thanksgiving calls. Well, what does that sound like? Hi, this is your realtor, Jeff Glover. I just wanted to call and wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving, and more importantly, I wanted to thank you for your business and your continued referrals. Oh, wow, Jeff, that's really nice of you to do that. We appreciate that. Absolutely, and if there's anything I can do for you or anyone you know where to find me. Not asking for business, am I? Now, what I did say in there is, I'm calling to thank you for your business and your continued referrals. Well, what happens if they're not sending you referrals? What's the script then? I'll give you the script. I'm calling to thank you for your business and your continued referrals. Yeah, but they're not sending you any referrals, correct, but I'm planting the seed in their head that I'm thanking them for their referrals so they start referring me business. Calling to thank you for your business and your continued referrals, and by the way, if there's anything I can do for you or anyone you know, I hope you'll keep us in mind. One of the greatest calls that you can make to a client. Almost all of them say something to the effect of, wow, that's really nice of you. Thank you for thinking of us. I mean, it is the most warm and fuzzy call that you can make to a client. Why do we do it around Thanksgiving? A couple reasons. Number 1, guess what they're getting ready to do in the next 30 days? Christmas, holidays, Hanukkah. They're seeing family and friends. Guess what the number 1 talked about thing at the holiday dinner table or on the couch watching the Lions game during Thanksgiving or whatever ends up being? Real estate. Who bought a home in the family? Who sold a home in the family? Who got married and is shopping for a home? Who got divorced and is shopping for a home, right? That is a common conversation. So I want to be fresh in their mind when that conversation exists. Well, when does that usually take place? Basically from Thanksgiving until the end of the year, which is why we make the call starting in Thanksgiving, or around Thanksgiving. So there's your 2 calls. The one is one event, one big client event. And I had you put an asterisk next to it because I'll share with you something we changed this year with our team. So in the last 4 years, as you may or may not know, we've been doing Detroit Tigers opening day. All right, and I always recommend to agents, no matter where I'm speaking, pick an event that's close to home, meaning that, for instance, I was doing a class similar to this in Kalamazoo, and they have, what's the Bells? Oberon Day. They have Oberon Day, right? So it's like a Friday in March. It already passed. It's a Friday in March, where it's kind of like opening day around here for Tigers. Everyone takes half days, or a ton of people go hang out downtown Kalamazoo for Oberon, or go to their brewery. Well, the recommendation I made is, since we know this is such a big deal in the community, why would you not pick an establishment that has Oberon and put on a client event, a big happy hour for the town? Right? Think about how many people you'd get to come to that, since they're already going to something. And oh, by the way, it's also in March, which is a good time for you to be fresh in people's mind, because when do people start thinking about buying or selling real estate? March. Just so happens they wait until April, May, or June. So pick an event that's popular in your town and something that people can relate to. Now, it doesn't have to be hundreds or thousands of people. It could be, right here in the park. It could be something small. It doesn't have to be a major event. I'll give you some examples of some of the events that our agents are doing. And the reason why I had you put an asterisk by it is because up until this point, we've just been doing, the last 4 years, one big client event. Well, now we have a program where we're essentially, the agents are doing their own events. And so I'll give you some examples of those. I'm sure a lot of these you've seen because you have realtor friends on Facebook, so you've seen promotions of this stuff. Okay, really popular is doing just local happy hours. 2 to 3 hour happy hour with your clients with some serving tray, some finger food, some hot appetizers. I'll tell you, one of our agents did this over the holidays. Now, she didn't have a ton of people show up. I think there was maybe 25 of her clients that showed up. Holidays are a little tougher to do the events because people got a lot of obligations going on. But she had 25 of her clients show up, and it was one of the best things she ever did. And I'll tell you, I went to the event with her just to see how it went and shook some hands or whatever. And I can tell you from the conversations that I had with her clients, these people will not consider using anyone else or referring anyone else. And they felt so thankful and grateful that they had the opportunity to be there on her dime. And I didn't have to bring up, so who do you know? They would just volunteer. Yeah, this is so awesome. Her name's Jane. This is so awesome for Jane to put on. I already told her my neighbor's going to be selling, and I've already hooked the 2 of them up, right? They're telling me of this stuff. Again, I was never a client events guy. We never did client events. I was always nervous that all my clients would get together and complain about their experience. So I didn't want them getting together because I didn't put a lot of effort into the experience. Like I said, it's not like I was giving bad service. It's just I wasn't making it a focus of mine. So happy hour is an example. Pictures with Santa, bowling events. This one's been around a long time, renting out a movie theater. Okay, it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, most of the stuff you can do for less than a couple $1,000, $500 to $1,000, $1,500. What happens? You get a couple referrals out of that. Great, it pays for it. A. B. You develop clients for life. I just had an example, speaking of Kalamazoo, a couple agents that come to our events. Krista and Luke Schrader out in Kalamazoo. They did an Easter egg hunt. Now, not only did they invite all their clients, but they also talked to, I guess you would call them influencers in the market, and had those people post on Facebook to their spheres of influence. They had over 1,000 people show up. They've been selling real estate for 3 years, right? They ended up having the police station there, the fire department. Kids can, get pictures with fire trucks, and obviously it was an Easter egg hunt. You better believe they'll be putting that event on again and again and again, and there's people there that are probably going to continue looking forward to that event. I wrote down, when you do events, make them last. How are you going to make them last? Have a videographer and or a photographer present that can shoot footage and shoot things for you, so that way a week or 2 after the event, you can share the video from it. You can send the video out to the database. Hey, by the way, this is one I just thought of, Taylor, that we need to do. Send it to everyone that we invited to opening day that didn't come. Oh, already did that. Okay, great. It's already been done. But in other words, sorry we missed you, here's what you missed. You can let your event live on. Again, I was never a big fan of client events, but I'm seeing that by implementing this stuff, it is now a big source of our business. So now, of course, I'm turned on to the idea of client events. So think about what you can do in your community. Ideally, you want to do it around the time that people are thinking about buying or selling real estate. In a perfect world, it would be sometime in March, April, May, June. Now, there's nothing wrong if you decide to do something in the fall. It's not bad if you can pick up an extra deal or two or a referral in the fall, okay, when it maybe slows down a little bit. But if you're going to look at the best ROI would be spring or summer, especially in a seasonal market. Step 5. I wrote down email drip campaigns. Email drip campaigns. So first step, add value by improving the customer experience. We beat that one up pretty good. Step 2, add value during the active agreement. Step 3, add value after the sale. Step 4, add value during the life of the client, which we just talked about our formula. Step 5, email and drip campaigns. Now this is one that I actually don't think really helps us get a ton of results. All right, I do think that CRMs are important and they help keep us organized, and it's a good idea to do this. All right, but the reason why it actually made the agenda is because it is almost effortless. And if it required effort, it wouldn't be on the list, because it's it lacks that personal touch. Now I will tell you this, a lot of agents say, well, I don't want to do those silly set the clock back emails and all this stuff, because everyone does those. Well, yeah, that's because you're on a bunch of real estate agents and a bunch of lenders' databases. So you don't think for a second that your client is getting 10 of those, just because you get 10 of them. You only get 10 of them because you're on their database. Somehow, somewhere you clicked somewhere or signed up for something that puts you in someone's database. So when you're sending out the basic Happy Easters or turn your clock backs or whatever it is, know that they're probably only getting that from a couple realtors. So it's not a bad thing to do. And that's why it made the list. I wrote down a monthly newsletter. You can use MailChimp. MailChimp is free. Okay, well, what do I put in the newsletter? What's going on in the market? Let's start with that. Okay, I wrote down, don't be afraid that, yeah, we just said that. Don't be afraid everyone's doing this. Remember, you're in only 2 or 3. The average client probably only has 2 or 3 realtors sending them stuff. So don't feel like it's going to be overkill or it's going to get lost in the shuffle. But also don't count on it, right? Don't set someone up on a campaign and expect that business is going to come back. Step number 6, adding people to the database. Adding people to your database. So you got a pretty good system set up, right? You got events, you've got drip campaigns, you got letters, you got phone calls, you got a pretty good thing going here. Well, now we need to continue adding people to that. All right, so let me give you a few ideas on that. Obviously, you guys don't have to write this down. When you transact business, they get added to your database. I think you know that, all right? But think about, and I remember years ago, we implemented this with our inside sales associate team. They had a daily log sheet, you know, now it's all digital, but they had a daily log sheet, and at the bottom it would say, I had a box that said, add to database. And this was because this is something that, again, this is probably something I started a long time ago, didn't do it consistently enough or a good enough job, and we've brought it back. And so now every single time one of our associates or one of our inside sales associates has a great conversation with someone, but it doesn't turn into a transaction, it doesn't turn into an appointment, it doesn't turn into a listing taken, for whatever reason, maybe you go on the appointment and you don't get anything converted out of it, it's part of the daily routine that they get added to a database. Because now they get invited to the client events, and now they get invited, you know, now they're on the drip campaign, now they're at the events. This is a potential client, someone I had a great conversation with that didn't turn into anything right now. So think about how often are you consciously aware of adding people to your database? Collecting contact information at events, utilizing sites like Eventbrite. We don't ever do an event where we don't use Eventbrite. And oh, by the way, when we use Eventbrite, we make them give us everything. Name, phone number, email, best home address, and they're required fields. So they can't get the free ticket to opening day party without filling in their current address. These are all required fields. Asking for referrals in the monthly emails, collecting name information at community events. It could even be a little piece of paper. The example I gave of the Easter egg hunt. I asked Kristen and Luke, how did you guys collect their information? They had just a little piece of paper. Everyone had, in order to get in, you had to stop at this table and fill one of these things out. Now, again, they had maybe 1,000 people there, and I think they actually only collected probably 600 or 700 of these pieces of paper. So clearly it was way busy that they didn't have a ton of them. But they asked questions like, are you considering buying or selling in the next 6 months? Do you know anyone looking to buy or sell in the next 6 months? They had 37 of their, let's just call it 600. 37 people selected yes to one of those two questions. So you had better believe their event was, of course, a week or so before Easter. That next week, they're making those follow-up calls. Thanks for attending our event. You noted that you're looking to buy or sell, or you know someone that is. Who do you know? So, step 6, adding more people to the database. Step 7, getting involved in your community and or charitable foundations. You want to add value to a database? Let your community and charitable foundations help add to your database. Okay, a lot of you may or may not know, but a couple years ago, we just decided, let's just create our own foundation. It's a little bit of a process to start a 501c3, but it can be done. Any individual can do it. That's a whole nother class. But you could start your own foundation, or the easiest thing you can do is partner with the foundation that is nearest and dearest to you. And in exchange for that, especially if it's a small to medium-sized foundation, you're not going to partner with the American Cancer Society, and they're not going to turn around and hand you their database. All right, they're probably better off being a smaller or medium-sized foundation, because then they're more likely to partner with you on money-raising events. And then they're more likely to share their database with you. Why would they do that? Well, because you're helping them raise money. So think of a small to medium-sized foundation that you could get involved with, that you could support, and exchange databases. Because your database of a few hundred or 500 or 1,000 has value to a smaller foundation, as they might only have a database of 500, 1,000, 2,000, right? Get involved in chamber events, community events. We always do music in the park here in downtown Plymouth. There's little things you can do. I would say one of the things that we're really big on when we get involved in stuff, I kind of have a rule of thumb. I avoid getting involved in it if I can't get on a microphone. Think about that. If it's a big event or something that I could help out or sponsor, I will do it as long as I can get on a microphone. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means I can talk and impact a large group in a little bit of time. So if it doesn't include that, it might not be something I'm supporting, and I might go support something else. When we did our client event at the Gem Theater for the Detroit Tigers opening day, it was already programmed into the agenda. Every 30 minutes, I was on stage on the microphone giving tickets away or doing something, getting the message out there, thanking them for the referrals. So think about what events you can do where you can be in front of a larger audience and be on a microphone. Finally, step 8, how can you stand out from the crowd? How can you stand out from the crowd in such a saturated world of real estate? Adding value to your database, you got to stand out from the crowd. And I wrote down, it's simple, but it's not easy, and may take time. And you may have some great ideas, and I'll tell you, through the years, I've had a lot of agents present things to me that were unique and I thought were really good ideas. And I wrote down the question, what problem could you solve for your clients? What problem could I solve for my clients? Now, if you guys didn't know, we created a solution to a problem with inaccurate home values. It's called UPRAISE. We didn't create that as just a tool to help real estate agents get better, get more accurate home values, or as a tool to generate leads of potential sellers and buyers. We generated it so now we can create a database within a database, essentially. Now we have a tool that our clients can use to get updates on their home values. And oh, by the way, we can see when they go in there and do it, which, of course, it wasn't easy to come up with that, but when you stare at the question, what could I do to solve a problem, what could I do to create value, ideas like that might come out of that. Another example would be, okay, this isn't necessarily solving a problem, but this is definitely unique and causes you to stand out. Maybe creating a newsletter that's just not the standard, here's what's going on in the market. Maybe use infotainment. Something Gary Keller actually has been talking about the last couple years, trying to convince a lot of his agents to do this. Infotainment, well, what is that? Well, it could be, what are the 7 best pools in Plymouth, right? Or the 8 best backyards in Brighton, right? Infotainment, people things that people are genuinely curious in their community. Not how to bake a strawberry meringue pie, right? I mean, I don't even know if strawberry meringue pie is a thing, but I just use an example. Things that are actually entertaining to them. Use infotainment to draw them in and to get them to want to continue to subscribe and receive what you're throwing out there. Again, going back to charity, it can be charitable related. Anytime you do something that's charity related, you're going to get warm and fuzzies and good feedback, and that's going to lead to future business. So I'm going to get to questions in a second, but before I do, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't make sure I shared with you our event that's coming up in July, the Live Unreal Retreat, Traverse City, Michigan. We're expecting 500-600 people. We're bringing in the #1 guy, Lance Loken, as you guys probably know, one of my first mentors, Kathy Schweitzer, Peter Chabris, who's known for his world-class customer service, Matt Sutter, who's known around the country, Karen Nguyen, Brent Conley, Dan Beer, Seychelle Van Poel. We got a lot of people coming to it. So if you want to check it out, feel free to do so. It's liveunrealretreat.com. That's LIVEUNREAL retreat.com. And that's this summer in Traverse City. The reason why I'm telling you now is because the early bird pricing for that expires on May 15th. So the normal rate is $249, $199 is the price until May 15th. At that point, it goes up to $249. So Traverse City, I mean, if you haven't been there, there's probably no better place in the country in the summer. So hopefully you guys can make it. What questions do you have for me? And anything we talked about, any one of these steps, or anything that we've implemented, or challenges that we've had, or things that have come up during this journey of essentially shifting from focusing on new business to focusing on how to get a better return on our database, which is essentially what this last hour was about. Yes.
Well, I guess just to piggyback off that statement, and I came in late, so I apologize, but at what point would you suggest, like, how many people you have in your database, you start making that shift from generating new business to nurturing the clients that you already have to try and create more out of it?
So, I actually, and I appreciate the question, I don't actually think that there's a perfect formula for that. What I can tell you is that I wish I would have done it sooner. And so at the time we made the decision to do it, what you did miss is I used the example of, I asked our staff to send how many invites to our client appreciation party did we mail out, all right? And it's a client appreciation party, so they had to have transacted business with us. And the number was like 4,000. And I started doing some math. I'm like, all right, I've been doing this 16 years. I know we've done at least 900 deals the last 3 years, so there's 3,000 right there. How is it that we only sent out 4,000? Well, the response I got, which I was of course frustrated, disappointed, but not surprised, we don't have any information on any transactions post or pre-2013 because I didn't do a really good job of putting people in the database, right? We didn't have a good system set up for that because I was always told, and I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but give good service and they'll come back to you. And I never really did much to stay in touch with them. So to answer your question, when we started on this journey of all the stuff I just shared, we only had at the time probably 500, 800 people in the database. So I don't think there's a magic number of when you should shift that focus from one to the other. I will tell you this though, the prospecting and lead generation for new business gets them in the funnel. And then what you do while you're in the funnel is where you get that return from. So I do believe there's a lot of great examples, and of course I'm not one of them, where people did the opposite. They didn't do the new business. They didn't do the prospecting. They just started with their book of 50 people that they knew, and it grew from there. Now it may take a little bit longer that way, but I think there's probably a happy balance. If I were to start over from the get-go, all over again, I'd probably say 50% of my time would go towards finding new business, and 50% of my time would go towards taking care of the business that I had, versus literally 95% went towards finding new business, 5% the business we had. And that is less profitable. The business, getting more business from business we already had or people we already know, has a better ROI than generating, a new prospect. Yes?
Our starter program.
Yep.
Do you use the the surveys or questionnaires that these companies you mentioned, like Zillow, Realtor.com?
Yep.
Or did you create your own?
So we asked them to write, so first of all, we do the customer service call. We're not gonna tell somebody that, on a scale from 1 to 10, if they rate us, is the number 6 or below, 5 or below?
6.
If they rate us a 6 or below, we don't tell them about the 5-star program, obviously. Okay, because we don't want them going on there saying our service was a 50% out of 100, right? So we get the review over the phone from them first. And then we hear, wow, they had a raving experience. Great. Have you heard about our 5-star program? Would you mind going, if we email you the links to these sites, would you mind going on there and sharing your information, your experience? And oh, by the way, when you do, we're going to get notified of that, and we're going to send you and your significant other to dinner.
Got it.
So in a nutshell, that's how it works. I will tell you, that was the biggest, so, and I'm not saying this to brag, but since we implemented that, I think we have more positive reviews on Zillow. I know for sure in Michigan, but I think we're top 3 or 4 in the country. We're almost at 1,000 reviews. I think we're at about 960 reviews. And that was a big part of how we got the reviews up so quickly. And so at the retreat, we are gonna spend a good 20, 30 minutes talking specifically about that program, because that's one of the difference makers on Zillow. You know, if we stopped advertising on Zillow tomorrow, we would still get a lot of listing opportunities because of that 5-star program, which led to a ton of reviews, right? So we get a lot of listing opportunities from that. And we're talking about it at the retreat because the retreat is focused on listing mastery. Yes?
You mentioned the honeymoon phase, the 3 parts of the transaction, the best time to ask for the referral. Are you actually asking 3 different times during that transaction?
Yeah, so when I first, before we had a big team and a big process, I was doing two of those 3, all right? And it was when the listing was taken and post-closing, all right? Does our staff do 3 of them now, or do we just do, we do 3, okay. So yeah, so we.
Pending and after closing.
Got it, so yes, we do 3, where we're calling them and making sure that they're happy with the way things are going during those 7 days, and finishing the call with, by the way, who do you know?
Cool.
Yep, yes.
Hey Jeff, on your 4 pieces of mail,
Yes,
is that snail mail?
yes,
It's
4
not email.
pieces of mail, yep, 4 snail mail, 2 phone calls, 1 event.
So is it first class mail or are you bulk mail?
First class or bulk?
It's first class.
First class.
And in envelopes, I mean, we do about 1,100
Yep.
quarterly, but we're doing it bulk, and it's not in an envelope, it's being.
It's in an envelope, but it's not handwritten because
Yeah,
you might
labels.
have.
Got it, so it's in an envelope.
But it's in an envelope, but it's.
It's in an envelope with a label.
Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Now, we do get kind of creative with our label. So we do change our label from time to time. So it won't have like Keller Williams, Jeff Glover and Associates or whatever logo on there. Sometimes we'll do just a return address. Sometimes we'll do, like for our Tigers invite, we'll actually do the Detroit Tigers logo with our return address. So we do creative things with the return address so it doesn't look the same. Because if it looks the same every single time, they might pick up on this is just junk mail, toss it out. So we try to change up our return address so it looks different. Great question. Anything else on anything we talked about today and adding value to your database to get a better return from it?
Closing gifts after you send them, do you give them to them at the time of closing or after?
Great question. So closing gifts, they go out about a month after closing. We don't do it at the table. I've just always believed that that's kind of disrespectful to the other realtors. So and again, some people still do it, whatever, that's just been my belief. So I don't do it at the table, A, and B, I want them to be reminded of me again about a month after the home is closed. So if I give it at the table or if I give it a week later, I'm still somewhat fresh in their mind. But if it goes out a month after closing, then I'm now fresh in their mind again after I've been gone for a month. Good question. Yes.
Did I understand correctly, you do a monthly newsletter or not?
We do a monthly email newsletter,
Email.
not physical. Yep. Any other questions?
Are you using Viral for that?
No.
We are not. We're using MailChimp. Yeah, we're using MailChimp. Anything else on adding value to the database? Sweet. Well, make sure to go check out liveunrealretreat.com. Get the early bird price while you can, and let's have an awesome rest of the day. See you guys.
Awesome job.